What is going on, Trash Talkers? We have some breaking news in the NBA. James Harden has finally been traded to the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets have given up an absolute haul for James Harden to pry him out of Houston. It came down to the Philadelphia 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets. We are going to get into absolutely everything you need to know. Make sure to stay tuned. Get ready right now. Nick, this move has been rumored to have been happening, and then all of a sudden in the last few hours we got word that this was picking up steam. The Rockets were in final talks with both the 76ers and the Nets with their offers, saying, listen, we're going to move James Harden. It's going to be now. And here we are. The Brooklyn Nets came out victorious. But not just the Brooklyn Nets. It seems like half the league was a part of this trade.
Yeah, they pretty much were. We've got the Rockets involved. We've got the Nets, the Cavs, and the Pacers. 4 teams involved in this trade. Picks flying everywhere. Players traded everywhere. It's a mess. You'd probably be better than me just breaking this down real quick for everybody.
Sure. So this is... Listen, everything I'm going to say is going to be in the description below. So if you miss something or if something's a little confusing to you, we're going to continue to break it down all day. But here it is. Okay, the Brooklyn Nets will receive James Harden. That's it. I mean, they get to keep James. They get the star of this entire draft, James Harden. The Houston Rockets will receive Victor Oladipo from the Pacers, Dante Exum, Rodions Kurucs from the Cleveland Cavaliers, 4 first-round picks, including Cleveland's 2022 first-round pick that was originally from the Milwaukee Bucks, and 4, count them 4, Nets pick swaps up until 2028. Now, the Cleveland Cavaliers will then receive Jarrett Allen and Taurean Prince, while the Indiana Pacers will receive Caris, LeVert, and a 2022 second-round draft pick. There's a lot to this. 4 teams in all. Absolutely incredible. But I want to just take a look here. Brooklyn gets to keep Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant while also adding James Harden. I think the question has to be asked, is this the best team in basketball?
I think so. I mean, they just bought their team. And they paid the heftiest price I've ever seen. This is ridiculous. Yeah. This is all in. This is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, what they did this season. The Brooklyn Nets are all in, and they don't have picks pretty much for the next 8 years. They're absolutely screwed if this doesn't work out. They need to make sure Kyrie is going to play some games and stop partying with his family. They need Kevin Durant to stay healthy and be out there. There is no more Caris LeVert. There's no more Jarrett Allen. They can't carry this team when those guys are out. Everybody needs to be here. James Harden needs to lose the weight. He needs to get in shape. He needs to want to be there.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a look at some of the comments that have been made over the last 24 hours, you saw that, James Harden was upset with Houston for not trading him, and he made some comments in the media post-game on Tuesday night, and then DeMarcus Cousins clapped right back at him and said the disrespect started long before any media interview, which means this has been an ongoing locker room issue for quite some time. So I believe that the Houston Rockets felt that they needed to trade James Harden for the sake of their locker room. DeMarcus Cousins came to Houston, as he says, to play with John Wall, knowing that this was going to be his reunite with his former college teammate. So right now, the Houston Rockets are banking on, or they're cashing out on James Harden's inability to want to stay in Houston. And for somebody who has, carved themselves out a really good role and a really good home in Houston to end this so dramatically is a little disheartening for NBA fans. For Brooklyn Nets fans, this is absolutely everything you could ask for, because not only do you keep Kyrie and Kevin Durant, but you're also going to keep Spencer Dinwiddie, which was a major piece that they wanted to hold on to as well. They have a lot of holes now, but it's going to be, can you score more points than we can? And that is with Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden at the helm. Assuming Kyrie Irving actually shows up and gets into communication with the team, because as I tweeted out earlier today, Kyrie Irving is MIA. He hasn't been in communication with the Nets. He hasn't been in communication with Steve Nash. He hasn't even been in communication with Kevin Durant. In fact, him and Kevin Durant haven't spoken in a couple of weeks, which is a little surprising and worrisome if you're a Brooklyn Nets fan. It seems like the Nets at this point made this deal to try to lure Kyrie back to the court, but Stephen A. Smith had it dead on balls accurate. Essentially, he needs to retire if he doesn't love the game enough to play it every single day. He's getting paid $30 million plus a year to play a game of basketball, and he can't even find the time in his schedule to show up. Now, if he's dealing with something that has to do with mental health or whatever the case is, I wish him all the best, but he needs to be able to communicate that with his team. He needs to stop partying with his family. He needs to start taking NBA protocols more seriously. Wear your goddamn mask, for God's sakes. I mean, there is just way too much that he is doing to disrespect this organization and this franchise, and they are not going to have it, especially after giving up what they just gave up for James Harden.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this kind of reminds me of the antics Antonio Brown was pulling with the Oakland Raiders at the time. I mean, this is absurd. But now you're carrying that over to the regular season, and it's just it's exponential compared to where it was previously. Every week it seems to get worse with Kyrie Irving, and it seems less and less like he wants to be here. I can't believe he's not a part of this trade. As I was going to mention this in another video, but I never expected Kyrie to be here after this trade occurred. I felt like James Harden was going to end up with the Brooklyn Nets at some point, but I thought it would have to be at the cost of Kyrie, and it would have been for the better, because Kyrie needs out of Brooklyn. He's from New Jersey. His family is too close to him. He needs to be in an area where he is by himself. He's isolated, just like he was in Cleveland, just like he was in Boston. He's away from his family. He can't just go and be around them constantly. He's going to have to survive on his own, and he's going to do that by playing the game of basketball. Now that he has his family that close to him, he has some other options.
My only issue with the likening of Antonio Brown and the Raiders situation was that Antonio Brown was traded against his will to a team he didn't want to go to. Kyrie Irving chose the Brooklyn Nets, okay? He chose to enter this organization, and just because he didn't have a say in who the new head coach would be, this is the temper tantrum that we're seeing. I can't buy that. I refuse to believe that Kyrie Irving is making this much of a mess, and he's basically disgracing the Brooklyn Nets name by going MIA and not talking to his head coach. I don't care if you wanted him to be your head coach or not. Steve Nash is the head coach. He is that guy, and you have to respect that decision. Just because you're a player and making $30 million a year doesn't mean you get to make all of the decisions. NBA players are getting on my nerves about not wanting to play for certain head coaches. If you don't want to be there, give up the salary, walk away, because I'm tired of this.
Yeah. And, Kyrie, this is, I think, a worse situation for him personally, because he's a guy who always needs to have the ball. And guess what? You have James Harden now, who's going to want the ball himself. Kevin Durant needs to get the ball himself as well. There's less room for him to actually work with the ball in his hands. So he's just going to be that much more frustrated. This is not looking good.
Luckily, James Harden and Kevin Durant have played together back when they were with the Oklahoma City Thunder, albeit, a million years ago. It just seems like absolutely forever ago. But the fact remains, they have some rapport. They played on Team USA together. All three of them did, in fact. Now it's just about implementing Kyrie Irving, getting and essentially replacing him for the Russell Westbrook, if you will. So let's see if this all works out. But at the end of the day, the Brooklyn Nets gave up a massive, massive haul to bring James Harden to Brooklyn. I'm not exactly sure that this is going to work out, but before we send this off, I want to take a look at two teams that missed out on James Harden, the Philadelphia 76ers and the Milwaukee Bucks. Listen, both of these teams were doing absolutely everything in their power to get James Harden. Milwaukee wasn't even considered, which is scary. If you're Giannis, knowing full well that what they tried to promise you to sign that massive extension that he did, and all of a sudden they're not even in the conversation for James Harden, you have to be very, very worried about the Milwaukee Bucks and where they're headed, because it's a slippery slope from the poor performances we're seeing now to where they could end up in the next year or two.
Yeah, I know this is not a good situation. They barely have enough assets as it is to compete with all these teams, and now Brooklyn just got so much better. And if it works out, you're gonna see Milwaukee start to drop in the seeding. I don't see where Milwaukee's gonna be in the next few years. They're losing assets left and right. Their draft picks are not great. They're not, their coaches are not developing players the way they should. Milwaukee is entering that flux area, and that's not where this team should be. This is exactly where Giannis does not want to be.
Exactly. And on the other side of the coin, we have the 76ers, who were desperately trying to trade Ben Simmons and get James Harden involved with what's the center's name there?
Joel Embiid.
Joel Embiid, thank you. Joel Embiid and James Harden would have been a fantastic dynamic duo together, and honestly might have thrust them into the top position in the Eastern Conference. But that didn't work out. Ben Simmons was not exactly what the Houston Rockets were looking for. Instead, they got this 4-team trade where they were able to get an insane amount of draft picks. They get some talent now, including Victor Oladipo, who could honestly be traded again if they want to utilize his services on another team. It'll be very interesting to see where all of this ends up. But as for right now, the Brooklyn Nets acquiring James Harden is way too premature to call them the best team. But on paper, this is one of those teams that you want to play with on 2K. That is for damn sure.
It sure is.
All right, that's going to do it for now. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to like this video, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you... sorry. Can you edit this out?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Make sure to like the video, comment, and subscribe. Every comment that we have is going to be featured in an upcoming video, so make sure that you want your comment featured, and we will make sure to do that. Peace and love, baby.